We're going to be talking about tech and key account management, everything you wanted to know, and maybe a few things you didn't. So sit tight and we're going to get right into it. Hey everybody, it's Warwick here, and I'm excited to share this episode of Account Management in Action. I'm joined by Kinsherf.
Started off as an entrepreneur and a business owner, as a musician, and then transitioned my career into technology and IT and how it pertains to small to medium-sized businesses of many different shapes, forms, and sizes. Recently have been director of client services at a MSP, in which I performed a digital transformation of their systems and tools, just utilizing what they already had and maybe getting some new ones in place for some of the account management and client success related things.
I'm glad you bring up that point around using the tools that you have. I'm a big fan of that because I think you can find use cases for technology, even if it might not be immediately apparent to key account managers and customer success managers, how it might apply to them.
I would say that necessity and constraints are sometimes the catalyst for creativity, right? So your tool may not do the exact thing that you need, but when you apply your use case and think creatively, I think you can get some pretty fantastic results. And sometimes working within constraints yields even more creative and productive results. So
yeah, I mean, sometimes I've found a tool more capable than I expected. What explain sort of PSAs and what kind of functionality you kind of look for in all of that, and what's your tech stack sweet
PSA
spot?
being the PSAs being professional services automation. It's super prevalent in managed services, in IT, especially in any industry where you're handling client requests and you want to track them from beginning to end. A lot of PSAs are full featured, and they will handle the billing. They will handle sort of like the contact management aspect. They act a little bit like a CRM. Yeah, they're really fantastic tools. I wish every industry used them in some capacity. I've seen Zendesk is one that is fairly industry blind, that you can purpose. I know Zoho's got some stuff out there I haven't fully evaluated, but yeah, what's great about them is they're used to track units of work, right? So every ticket is a unit of work. You can make a ticket for yourself that's just a task that you have to get done that's going to take more than 5 minutes, right? And you keep that ticket or that event or that task on your board. You track your notes as you do it, and then it has a closed status eventually. So on like a fairly weekly or regular basis, you can check on what work you've got to do. You can do it internally, or a lot of PSAs integrate with email communication tools. So you can track your communication about specific tasks with your clients. And yeah, so PSAs are fantastic.
I have played around with Zoho Books a little bit because there's Zoho CRM, Zoho Books, Zoho Invoice, Zoho Desk. There's like a whole range of like basically modules that all kind of come together under this PSA sort of umbrella. HubSpot, I think, is a little bit like that as well. Maybe not quite as to the extent. But, you know, for example, in the KAM Club, which is my membership community, I have an integrated chat widget. So whenever somebody chats on the website, I can turn that into a support ticket. I can actually just attach it to their contact record. So kind of all of the interactive elements of the customer experience kind of all feed up through that. So is that kind of what you're talking about with PSAs? Like you can kind of like start with a support ticket and you can kind of project manage things. You can kind of get like 360-degree visibility of where the client's been in the journey and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the goal in all organizations of all sizes is never enter data twice, right? You need a source of truth for all your data points, and integrating with other tools to satisfy that never enter data twice requirement is very important. You'll find like typos in names. You'll find companies, variations of their names, and then it doesn't look great to your client when you present their company name in several forms and in some ways sometimes that they don't represent themselves.
Account planning, which is more like project management, I feel like there's some dedicated tools beyond spreadsheets that can add some value there. Customer relationship management, which is really around the CRM and like what kind of tools you use there. Then I had sort of account growth, like some of those things are around, marketing channels, email marketing, around contact management with sales, potentially some cold outreach. Then you have knowledge management, which is, you can see I'm doing quite a bit here, but I need to kind of streamline it. But where you keep information, not just for yourself, but as you learn things about your customers, there's stuff that goes into the CRM, but there's a lot more detail that you usually will have somewhere else. The CRM can't capture everything. Then you've got information sharing. So that's like live streaming, webinars, conference calls. What do you use for presentations? Relationship building. Then you've got meetings like joint calendars, like what do you call them? Scheduling tools, calendars. Automations like Zapier, integrations, APIs. You've got email, onboarding like demo tools, that type of stuff. And you've got password managers, and you've got just general communication like Slack, Teams, Zoom. So when I was like putting together this list, I'm like, holy cow, like there's a lot of tech for us to get across as, customer service professionals, not to mention any particular, proprietary tools that you might have.
It is it's pretty daunting, yeah, when you look at it and you realize like, oh, I got to get all of these areas covered in some way. Probably the simplest way to do this is everybody's got a document management system, right? Whether it's Google Drive or SharePoint, Dropbox. Make a folder for all of your clients, and then you can make a folder per month. You can make a folder per issue, per request, per initiative, and then at the very least you'll have buckets of things related to that, so you're not searching all over the place. As far as account growth, that's one where I've found some specific tools that have changed my focus on account growth. And the way that I've been using account growth, and again, this is tool blind. You don't have to use any specific tool for it. But in your servicing of a client, it's been beneficial to define the 100% ideal alignment, right? If there's many areas, I'm going to use IT because that's my experience. But let's say you have cybersecurity, hardware, email security. Let's just go with those three, right? You would define the best practice for all three categories and then score your client against each category of saying like, well, let's see, cybersecurity, I have these 10 bullet points that I want to see for this client. And then when you do your meetings, you need to track that somehow. Where did they start? That's your baseline. Then as you execute account plans to check off bullet points, next time you check in, that score will be higher, right? Until eventually it's 10 out of 10, and you're like, well, okay, now I need to increase the maturity of this assessment. Is there anything else I can do?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it doesn't have to be super complicated. You can start with a scorecard, like, okay, here's a set of criteria, a health check. Here are some key elements that we know as, experts in the business and the solutions that we provide that are optimized. If you kind of can get best in class in these 10 areas, you're on a good place to then build on that. I'm a big fan of starting simple, starting small, figuring out the basics, something like a scorecard. Great way to go. And you can do that in a lot of different tools.
I knew that in my IT consultancy business, that my MSP, I would be handling support, strategy, and cybersecurity. So I made those the big ones and went through and said, all right, what is support made of? It's made up of remotely connecting, monitoring hardware, right? Reporting on hardware, and sending out alerts and deploying antivirus. So in evaluating tools for support, I said, let me find one tool that checks as many of those boxes as you can. And I found one. And it's one that I was actually familiar with. It's called Ninja One. If you're an internal IT department or an IT provider, you're probably familiar with RMMs, and Ninja One was a pretty great one. It ticked all the boxes. I like Ninja One for IT support and remote monitoring and management. As far as the other areas, I did the same. I applied the same process of just like, what are the key features that I need, and then I boiled it down to I have three pillars of my service, and I have three tools.
I admire your restraint because my list of tools is out of control. There's so many of them, but I love the idea of discipline of like going, okay, what's the core of what I'm trying to accomplish here? Like, what are the pillars? What are the main things I really need? Like, strip away the nice to haves. Like, let's focus on the core functionality I need. And I think when you're in key account management, customer facing roles, those are the things to really focus on, especially when you have tools that might frustrate you. There's a set of tools that you inherit when you join an organization that are established, that they've been there, they're legacy tools, they've been there for a while. That's not to say that there's a closed door to any new tools that are available, and it can start from the bottom up.
Right. So I'm in a startup and I make my own decisions, right? But sometimes you work for a company that is larger, and you're not maybe in charge of choosing the tools, but you can definitely make some noise. And I actually put together sort of a template of how to request a tool, right? How to evaluate a tool and request it. So first thing was function. First, what is this tool going to do? That's what function is. Like, what do you want it to do? And then purpose being, what does the tool actually do? Which can sometimes be different. Function is like, A, what is it going to do? What areas of my business is it going to help? And, what pieces are there? The purpose being like overall, like generally, what is the purpose of the tool? And see if those two things are jiving. If those first two things are jiving, then continue on, right? Into utilization, which is what do I already have in place that does this? And am I going to utilize that tool less now and this tool more? Like, where's that breakdown going to be? And is there going to be a primary between existing tools and this new one that this is going to replace? Then I think
that answers the question, which will inevitably come with your boss. Why don't you just use Teams? Why don't you just use Slack? Like, at least if you thought about the utilization, you're like already managing the objection. Like, I guess through this process, you might realize maybe it's not as compelling as you thought either. You get excited about the features, but then when you go through your process, like function, what is it supposed to do? Why do I want it? Like, what purpose is it going to fulfill in our organization? And then how does this compare with what we currently have? Is it complementary? Is it parallel? Is it a replacement? Blah, blah, blah. Cuts out all the noise, doesn't it? Step by step.
Yeah, like you said, you may even get part of the way through this and leave it and be like, oh, I can utilize something better. In requesting a tool, you should understand who it's going to benefit and be honest about it too. Is this going to benefit your client, right? Is this going to make communication easier for them? Is this going to make receiving your service easier? Things like that, right? Is this going to be a key account management value, right? Is this going to benefit you as a key account manager? Is this just going to make your day-to-day life easier and the lives of individuals easier? The next one up is team value. Is it going to help your team collaborate? Is it going to unify your purposes? Is it going to make you as a team more efficient? And then the last area is like executive value. Like, does this tool provide valuable insight to executives and managers? Does it have reports that they can utilize and KPIs? And if you can find and be honest about the different values that this tool will provide, when you request it, again, any objection that you may have to using it will already sort of be handled.
I love that approach, and I've never really thought about it in those terms. Like, I've asked for plenty of software in my time, not always successfully, but I've usually just been thinking about it from my point of view, like, oh, this will make my life so much easier. But actually, when you think about the constituents, the stakeholders, and I guess if you can appeal to more than just one, then I guess you're onto a bit of a winner, aren't you? If you're like, well, this will make our clients' lives easier, make my life easier. And actually, as an executive, you're going to get line of sight to resource allocation or this or that. And overall, there's quite a few beneficiaries of this tool.
And the last area, and it's the most templated area, is depending on the size of your organization, you're going to have to appeal to an application approval process, right? You're going to have a CTO or a technical director or somebody in technology that should be answering these questions when they bring on a new tool. Is it cloud-based or is it locally installed? That has implications for compliance. Are you going to store personally identifiable information in the tool, right? Is your client's name, phone number, address going to exist in this tool, either through an integration or entered manually? Is this tool actively in development, right? Are they going to put out security updates as threats evolve, right? Are they going to add new features? Are you going to get longevity out of this tool? And then the last two bullet points are you should link to the data policies and security policies of the tool. Most tools, if it's cloud-based or has a website, they will have a section that nobody likes to read, but you can find the link to it, and they explain how they handle your data. They explain the procedure for account deletion and data deletion and what their security policies are. Including that link is just going to handle any objections from your IT department. Then this last part, are there required integrations? Some tools require integrations, and some tools just have desired integrations, and sort of presenting those to your IT department can really help them understand what you're going to use it for.
Wow, I've never done that in my life. But I can see the value in that. Really, really, really useful. I think not hard either. Like the way you've broken it down, if you're that committed to the tool, I would imagine this is not going to take you more than probably an hour to pull together at least a first draft, maybe probably less depending on what it is and its use case. So really great outline.
Yeah, definitely. And let me share with you an example. I filled one out as an example. I sort of like mock evaluated something that I use called Cloudflare. It's free to use, and if you manage DNS or domains, like if you have a website, Cloudflare is a great tool to link up. Here's sort of a breakdown of like kind of what it looks like, what area. It's for websites, and more specifically, domain name system, like all the DNS stuff. What does it do? It does record management. I can delegate access to my DNS records to contractors, and it provides an extra layer of security and protection. That's the function, right? I've named those three functions. The purpose, it's management and it's hosting, right? These are variable areas where you could define them however you want. And then describing what the tool is designed to do, which I think I just copied and pasted like their purpose statement, which I know we said you don't have to do, but I did because it was pretty apt.
Yeah, I mean, you can rewrite it if you don't need to, but I'm just saying you're going to pick the bit that makes sense for what you're asking for, aren't you?
Yep, exactly. And then in utilization, those same three functions from the top area, I put down as the rows and said, yep, GoDaddy does record management, GoDaddy does delegate access, GoDaddy does DNS and security. Cloudflare is going to be the primary tool for it, and then I put notes on why. Who is it going to value? Team, easier to securely manage DNS, so anybody internally who needs to like make changes can do it better. And executive benefit, they can ensure protection and compliance with, certain domain-based services. And then I did the little compliance area down the bottom. It's all cloud-based. No, it will not contain PII. I mean, it will contain domain records, which are important to keep secure, but no, it will not contain PII. Yes, it's actively being developed. That's the link to their privacy and security policies. Desired, I would like to integrate this with WordPress and WordPress engine. Are there required integrations? I said no, but I think actually there is in this case. But it's more of just like kind of like to run through it very quickly. I mean, I didn't have to do this so thoroughly in my creation of the template. But
Yeah. I mean, when you look at it like this, look how straightforward this is. And this is any tool, right? I mean, now we're talking here, maybe you're not looking at Cloudflare, but you're looking at a project management tool, Asana, or you're looking at, a password security tool like Keeper that you want rolled out again, like instead of having to manage it manually, whatever it might be. Going through this format is such a great way, A, to evaluate it yourself, but B, to kind of lay the groundwork for, moving this through the organization to get it approved. Question I was going to ask you though, price. Do you kind of get into that at the beginning, or do you kind of sell it first and kind of evaluate it, see if there's interest, see what people respond to, and then kind of talk about licenses and what it's going to cost? Or where does that factor into your kind of use case process?
Yeah, definitely. I think in this template, or this sort of structure, is supposed to start the conversation and, like you said, handle all of the objections. Of course, you're going to have to speak with accounting or finance or your manager, whoever approves whoever signs the checks, right, to have that conversation about price, right? It's something that you need to sell it first internally, right? And then once that's done, there should be little objection to utilizing the tool. I didn't consider putting cost on here deliberately, just because of how that conversation will vary. That conversation will vary a lot more organization to organization than the compliance and just the function and purpose and stuff.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much, Tyler. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate the conversation. It was fascinating to learn about your perspective. And I really appreciate those resources around tool evaluation, around KAM tech and building the business case. Immensely helpful. And I think if you want tech, if you want to go ahead, be the voice, be the champion for that particular piece of tech, but you got to do the work. You got to build the business case. You've got to convince people. You've got to do the legwork. And I think the way you've laid it out, genius. So, fantastic. Thanks so much.